Marcus Chen walked into the Galactic Records office with steady steps, though his heart pounded against his ribs. The alien clerk behind the curved desk looked up with 4 eyes that blinked in sequence. Her blue skin shimmered under the artificial lights, and her tentacle-like fingers moved across a holographic interface. "How may I assist you today, human?" she asked in perfect universal standard, though her voice carried the musical tone typical of her species. Marcus placed his identification card on the scanner. "I need to request my personal records." "All of them." The clerk's eyes widened slightly. In her 3 decades of working at this office, she had processed millions of requests. Beings from across the galaxy came here seeking birth certificates, education transcripts, medical histories, and employment records. But something about this human's tone made her pause. "Certainly. Let me pull up your file." Her fingers danced across the interface. Marcus Chen, born on Earth Colony 7, graduated from the Terran Engineering Institute, currently employed as a maintenance technician on Station Beta 9. Marcus nodded. "That's me. But I want everything. Not just the public records." The clerk's expression changed. Her skin darkened to a deeper blue, which Marcus recognized as a sign of confusion among her people. "Sir, I'm showing additional files, but they're classified under the Deathworld Protocol. I cannot access those without special authorization." Deathworld Protocol? Marcus kept his voice calm, but his mind raced. He had never heard that term before. "I'm sorry, but I cannot provide details about classified designations. If you believe you have authorization to view these files, you'll need to speak with a supervisor." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Then please call your supervisor." The clerk hesitated, then pressed a button on her desk. Within minutes, a tall insectoid being emerged from a back office. His carapace was polished black, and his compound eyes reflected the room's lights like tiny mirrors. This was a Thrak, Marcus realized, one of the most bureaucratic species in the known galaxy. "I am Supervisor Zikth. There appears to be an issue with your record request." Marcus repeated his request, watching as the supervisor's antennae twitched. The Thrak moved to the clerk's terminal and began typing with remarkable speed. "Human Chen, your records are extensive. The public files are available immediately. However, there are additional files marked with the highest security classification. These files are designated Top Secret Deathworld Protocol." "What does that mean?" Supervisor Zikth's mandibles clicked together, a sign of nervousness. "The Deathworld Protocol is, how do you humans say, above my pay grade. These files can only be accessed by someone with level 9 clearance or above." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Level 9 clearance was reserved for galactic security matters, military operations of the highest importance, and planetary defense protocols. Why would his personal records be classified at that level? Who has level 9 clearance? Very few beings. Perhaps a dozen individuals in this entire sector. The regional director, certain military commanders, a few researchers with special permissions. Zikith paused. "And apparently you do." Marcus stared at him. "What?" "According to the system, Marcus Chen has level 9 clearance for files related to the Deathworld Protocol. This is unusual. In my 40 years of service, I have never seen a maintenance technician with such authorization." The clerk had been listening with growing amazement. "Should I process the request?" Zikth's antennae twitched faster. "Protocol requires that I verify this clearance with higher authorities. This will take time. How much time?" "Perhaps several days. The verification process is complex." Marcus shook his head. "I need these records now. If the system says I have clearance, then process the request. Sir, with respect, these are extraordinarily sensitive files. The consequences of unauthorized access, then verify my authorization. Call whoever you need to call, but I'm not leaving without my records." Supervisor Zikth exchanged a look with his clerk. Both aliens seemed deeply uncomfortable, but the human's determination was clear. After a long moment, Zikith moved to a secured terminal in the corner of the office. "Very well. I will contact Regional Director Vashati. If she confirms your clearance, we will process your request immediately." Marcus waited as Zikth placed the call. He could hear only one side of the conversation, conducted in rapid clicks and whistles. The supervisor's body language grew increasingly agitated. Finally, he returned to where Marcus stood. "Director Vashati will speak with you directly." The main display screen flickered to life, revealing a being that made Marcus catch his breath. Director Vashati was a void walker, one of the ancient species that had helped establish the Galactic Coalition. Her form seemed to shimmer between solid and ethereal, and her eyes held the wisdom of millennia. Marcus Chen of Earth. Her voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to vibrate in his bones. You seek records that have been sealed for 27 years. I just want to know about my own life. Your life, human, is not as simple as you believe. Vashti's form solidified slightly. Tell me, what do you remember of your childhood on Earth Colony 7? Marcus frowned. Normal things. School, friends, family. My parents died in a transport accident when I was 16. I finished my education and took the first job I could find. And you have never questioned why a maintenance technician would be assigned to one of the most strategically important stations in this sector. The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had never thought about it. Station Beta 9 monitored the border between Coalition space and the territory of the hostile Zarathi Empire. It was heavily defended, staffed by military personnel and elite specialists. Why was he there? I assumed I was qualified for the position. Vashti's laugh was like music from a broken instrument. Oh, Marcus Chen, you are far more qualified than you know. Supervisor Zikth process his request. All files. Full access. Director, are you certain? The Deathworld protocol was created specifically for situations like this. Process the request now. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. Supervisor Zikth moved mechanically to his terminal, his movement sharp with anxiety. The files are being compiled. This will take several minutes. I must warn you, human, that what you are about to learn may change everything you believe about yourself and your species. Marcus sat down in the waiting area, his hands trembling slightly. Through the office's transparent walls, he could see normal beings going about their daily business. Tourists taking pictures, families handling immigration paperwork, merchants filing trade documents. None of them knew that their entire understanding of reality might be about to change. The terminal chimed softly. Supervisor Zikth looked up with an expression Marcus couldn't read. Your records are ready, Marcus Chen. All files marked Top Secret Deathworld Protocol are now available for your review. Marcus accepted the data pad with hands that barely shook. The device was warm to the touch and he could feel the weight of the information it contained. Supervisor Zikth had retreated to his office, clearly wanting no part in what was about to unfold. The clerk busied herself with other tasks, though Marcus noticed her stealing glances in his direction. He activated the pad and was immediately presented with a security warning in dozens of languages. The text pulsed red as it required him to confirm his identity through biometric scan, retinal verification, and neural pattern recognition. When the security checks completed, a new message appeared. Warning: the following files contain information classified under the Deathworld Protocol. This information is restricted to authorized personnel only. Unauthorized disclosure is punishable by Galactic Tribunal. Do you wish to proceed? Marcus pressed yes without hesitation. The first file that opened made his blood run cold. It was titled Subject Profile Marcus Chen, Deathworld Survivor. Class A Threat Assessment. The document began with what appeared to be a standard personnel file, but Marcus quickly realized the information was far more detailed than anything he had ever seen. It contained not just his basic statistics, but detailed psychological profiles, genetic analysis, and something called combat readiness indicators. According to the file, Marcus scored in the 99th percentile for something called Deathworld Adaptation Syndrome. The term was linked to another document, which he opened immediately. Deathworld Adaptation Syndrome, a condition observed in beings who have survived extended periods on planets classified as deathworlds. Subjects typically exhibit enhanced reflexes, increased pain tolerance, accelerated healing, and abnormal stress response patterns. Most concerning is the development of what researchers term predator instincts, the ability to assess and neutralize threats with minimal conscious thought. Marcus stared at the screen. This couldn't be right. He was just a maintenance worker. He fixed air recyclers and calibrated gravity generators. He had never hurt anyone in his life. But even as he thought this, memories began to surface. Times when he had moved without thinking, when his body had reacted to dangers before his mind had even recognized them, the way he always knew when someone was behind him, how he could sense tension in a room the moment he entered it, the way other beings seemed slightly nervous around him, Even though he tried to be friendly, he opened the next file. Earth Colony 7, Incident Report. What he read there made him understand why his hands were shaking. Earth Colony 7 had not been a normal human settlement. According to the report, it had been established as a testing ground for human adaptation to extreme environments. The colony had been placed on a planet that the Galactic Coalition had classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, a designation reserved for planets so dangerous that most species considered them uninhabitable. The planet featured gravity twice that of Earth, an atmosphere with trace amounts of toxins that would slowly poison most species, predators that hunted in coordinated packs, and weather patterns that could shift from scorching heat to lethal cold in a matter of hours. The plant life was largely carnivorous, and even the water sources contained parasites that would be fatal to most galactic species. But humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. Marcus scrolled through pages of research data. Human children born on the planet developed enhanced immune systems, improved reflexes, and increased bone density. Adults who lived there for extended periods showed remarkable improvements in problem-solving, under stress, and threat assessment capabilities. The research had been conducted by a joint coalition human team, ostensibly to understand human adaptability for potential colonization projects. But Marcus was beginning to suspect there had been another purpose entirely. He opened a file labeled Military Applications Assessment. His suspicions were confirmed. The research on Earth Colony 7 had been part of a larger study into human combat effectiveness. The Galactic Coalition, it seemed, had been facing increasing threats from hostile species along their borders. Traditional coalition military forces, composed primarily of peaceful species that had evolved on garden worlds, were proving inadequate against the more aggressive races. Humans, however, were different. The report detailed how human soldiers performed in various combat scenarios compared to other coalition species. The results were staggering. In ground combat, humans were 300% more effective than the average coalition trooper. In survival scenarios, they succeeded 95% of the time compared to the galactic average of 23%. Most remarkably, humans seemed to perform better under stress, not worse. But it was the next section that made Marcus's blood run. Cold Psychological Profile Human Combat Personnel. The document described how human soldiers seemed to possess an inherent understanding of violence that other species lacked. They could switch between peaceful civilian behavior and lethal combat effectiveness almost instantly. They showed no lasting psychological trauma from combat situations that would permanently damage other species. Most disturbing to the researchers, humans seemed to enjoy the challenge of combat. Marcus remembered his parents' death more clearly now. It hadn't been a transport accident. Their shuttle had been attacked by raiders near the edge of Coalition space. He had been told they died instantly. But the file contained the real story. His parents had fought back. The raiders had expected an easy target, a small civilian transport carrying researchers and their families. Instead, they had encountered two humans who had spent years adapting to one of the most dangerous planets in known space. Marcus's parents had killed 7 raiders and severely damaged their ship before finally being overwhelmed. The raider survivors had filed a formal complaint with the Coalition, claiming that humans were too dangerous to be allowed in civilian populations. Marcus opened the final file with trembling fingers. It was titled, Project Deathworld, Phase 2 Implementation. What he read there changed everything he thought he knew about his life. After the incident with his parents, the Coalition Council had made a decision. Humans were too valuable as soldiers and too dangerous as civilians. A new protocol was established. Human children who showed high levels of Deathworld adaptation would be monitored throughout their lives. When they came of age, they would be placed in positions where their abilities could be observed and utilized if needed, but where they would pose minimal threat to galactic society. Marcus Chen, the file revealed, had been placed as a maintenance technician on Station Beta 9 because the station's commander needed someone who could handle crisis situations, someone who could think clearly under pressure, someone who could survive if the station was attacked, someone who could kill if necessary. The file contained recordings from his supervisors over the years. They spoke of his uncanny ability to spot problems before they became critical failures, his calm demeanor during emergency situations. the way other crew members instinctively looked to him for leadership when things went wrong, despite his low rank. Marcus realized he had been living a lie his entire adult life. He wasn't a simple maintenance worker. He was a weapon, kept in reserve and carefully monitored by a galactic government that both needed and feared what humanity represented. And according to the final entry in his file, that reserve status was about to change. The final entry in Marcus's file was dated just 3 days ago. His hands shook as he read the brief message that would reshape his entire existence. Subject Chen, Marcus, activation authorized. Report to Strategic Command within 72 hours for full briefing and deployment. Classification level maximum priority. Mission parameters unknown. Estimated survival probability variable. Below that was an address he had never seen before, located in the high-security district of the station where he had worked for the past decade. A place he had walked past thousands of times without ever wondering what lay behind its unmarked doors. Marcus closed the datapad and sat in silence for several minutes. Around him, the normal business of the records office continued. Beings filed paperwork, requested documents, and handled the mundane bureaucracy of galactic life. None of them knew that one of the most carefully monitored weapons in Coalition space was sitting among them, having just learned the truth about his existence. Supervisor Zeketh emerged from his office. Moving with the careful precision of someone trying not to attract attention, his compound eyes reflected Marcus's image dozens of times as he approached. "Have you finished reviewing your files, Human Chen?" Marcus looked up at him. "You knew, didn't you? What I really was?" Zeketh's antennae twitched nervously. "I suspected. In my years of service, I have processed records for many beings, but I have never seen files with such extensive monitoring data, unless the subject was considered either extremely valuable or extremely dangerous. Often both. How many others like me are there? I do not have access to that information, but based on the file structure and classification protocols, I would estimate there are others, perhaps many others." Marcus stood up slowly, his mind processing the implications. The Coalition has been preparing for something. Wars come and go in the galaxy. Human Chen. But the Coalition has lasted for over 2,000 years by being prepared for threats that others cannot imagine. Zeketh paused. "You should report to Strategic Command. Delays in following activation orders are discouraged." Marcus nodded and handed back the datapad. As he walked toward the office exit, the clerk called out to him. "Sir, will you be requesting copies of these files?" He turned back. "Can I? Normally, classified files cannot be copied, but your clearance level permits it. Then yes, send copies to my personal account." As Marcus left the records office, he felt the weight of every gaze that fell upon him. Did these beings know what he was? Could they sense the predator that had been sleeping beneath the surface of his mundane life? The transit system that carried him through the station's corridors seemed slower than usual, though he knew that was just his perception. His newly awakened awareness was cataloging every detail: the number of security checkpoints, the patterns of foot traffic, the locations of emergency exits. Skills he didn't remember learning were analyzing his environment with military precision. The high-security district was exactly what he expected: clean, sterile, and heavily guarded. But as Marcus approached the checkpoint, something unexpected happened. The guards, a pair of heavily armed Korthaki mercenaries, straightened to attention when they saw him coming. "Human Chen," the senior guard rumbled in his species-characteristic bass voice. "You are expected. Please proceed to Level 7, Section C. No security scan. No verification of his identity. They simply knew who he was and why he was there." The elevator ride to Level 7 felt like descending into another world. Marcus had worked in the engineering sections of the station, where the walls were lined with pipes and conduits, where the air hummed with the sound of machinery. This place was different. The corridors were wide and empty, lit by soft panels that seemed to adjust to his presence. His footsteps echoed despite the sound-dampening material he could see in the walls. Section C was a single door marked only with a number. As Marcus approached, it opened automatically, revealing an office that defied his expectations. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time view of space beyond the station. Comfortable chairs were arranged around a central holographic display table. But what caught Marcus's attention were the beings sitting in those chairs. There were 5 of them, and Marcus recognized each species. A Thrak-like supervisor, Zikth, but wearing the insignia of a military commander. A Voidwalker similar to Director Vashati, but younger and more solid-looking. A Xantheran whose crystalline body pulsed with internal light. A Korthaki whose scarred armor spoke of extensive combat experience. And at the head of the table, a being Marcus had only seen in historical footage. A progenitor, one of the ancient race that had founded the Galactic Coalition. Marcus Chen, the progenitor spoke with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome. Please sit." Marcus took the empty chair, noting that it had been sized specifically for human proportions. "You've been expecting me. We have been expecting you for many years. The question was when you would be ready to learn the truth." The progenitor gestured to the holographic display, which activated to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. "Tell me, what do you know of the Zarathi Empire?" Marcus studied the display. The Zarathi territory was marked in red, a massive region of space that seemed to be growing larger even as he watched. They're hostile, expansionist. The Coalition has been fighting border skirmishes with them for decades. That is the public understanding, yes. The reality is somewhat different. The Thrak commander leaned forward. The Zarathi are not simply expansionist. They are eliminators. Every species they encounter is given a simple choice: submit to complete servitude or be destroyed utterly. The Voidwalker's form shimmered. 3 months ago, our long-range scouts detected massive fleet movements in Zarathi space. They are preparing for a final offensive against the Coalition. Our intelligence suggests they plan to begin their assault within 6 months, added the Xantheran, its voice ringing like crystal chimes. Conservative estimates indicate they will outnumber Coalition forces by approximately 8-1. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "And you want me to fight them?" The Korthaki's scarred mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "We want you to do what humans do best, Marcus Chen. We want you to survive. And in surviving, to ensure that others survive as well." The progenitor activated another section of the holographic display. Marcus saw images of worlds, but not any worlds he recognized. These planets were scorched, their surfaces torn and broken. Some showed signs of massive explosions. Others appeared to have been stripped of all life. "These are former Zarathi worlds," the progenitor explained. "Planets they conquered in their expansion over the past century. Notice that they are all uninhabitable now. What happened to them? The Zarathi do not simply conquer. They consume. They take what they need from a world, resources, technology, genetic material, and then they destroy it completely. They view the universe as a finite resource to be harvested, not a place to build civilization." Marcus stared at the images of devastation. "How many species have they wiped out?" 43 confirmed, the Voidwalker answered. "Possibly more. Entire cultures, billions of years of evolution, countless works of art and science, all erased because the Zarathi found them inconvenient." The weight of this information settled on Marcus like a physical burden. "And the Coalition can't stop them?" "The Coalition was built by species that evolved on peaceful worlds," the Thrak commander said. "Our military doctrine is based on defense, deterrence, and negotiation. We are not equipped for a war of annihilation, but humans are." The progenitor's ancient eyes fixed on Marcus. "Humanity evolved on what we classify as a Class 13 Deathworld, the highest classification we have ever recorded. Your species developed in an environment so hostile that simply surviving to reproductive age required constant vigilance, rapid decision-making, and the ability to use violence effectively when necessary. You are the product of millions of years of evolution in hell," the Korthaki added, with something like respect. "And now we need you to go to hell once more." Marcus stared at the holographic display as new images appeared. These were not destroyed worlds, but something far more disturbing. Detailed analysis of Zarathi biology, technology, and military tactics. "Before we ask you to make any decisions," the progenitor continued, "you must understand exactly what we face." The display zoomed in on a Zarathi warrior. Marcus had heard descriptions before, but seeing the reality was different. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 6 limbs that could function as either arms or legs depending on the situation. Its exoskeleton was a deep purple-black color, and its head featured multiple eyes arranged around a central mouth filled with serrated teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Zarathi are apex predators," the Xantheran explained, its crystalline body pulsing with changing colors. They evolved on a world where cooperation was weakness, and only the strongest individual survived to breed. Their entire society is built around the concept of dominance through superior force. They view all other species as either prey or competitors to be eliminated, added the Voidwalker. There is no negotiation possible, no peaceful coexistence. They literally cannot comprehend the concept of mutual benefit. Marcus studied the tactical data appearing beside the Zarathi image. Their weapons were designed for maximum lethality rather than efficiency. Their armor was built to intimidate as much as protect. Even their ships reflected a philosophy of overwhelming force over tactical subtlety. How have they been so successful against coalition forces? The threat commander's antennae drooped slightly. Because we have been fighting them as if they were a conventional military force. Our tactics assume an enemy that seeks territorial gain, strategic advantage, or political leverage. But the Zarathi seek only the complete destruction of all life that is not Zarathi. They sacrifice entire fleets to destroy a single coalition ship, the Korthaki growled. They send warriors into combat with no expectation of survival, only maximum damage to their enemies. Our commanders cannot predict their behavior because their logic is alien to us. The display changed again, showing battle footage from recent skirmishes. Marcus watched coalition ships trying to maintain formation, while Zarathi vessels rammed into them without regard for their own survival. He saw scenes of ground combat where Zarathi warriors continued fighting, even after sustaining injuries that should have been fatal. How many humans are currently in coalition military service? The progenitor's expression grew somber. Very few, perhaps 200 across the entire galaxy. Humanity has been kept largely separate from coalition military structures for obvious reasons. Marcus understood the implication. The coalition feared human military effectiveness almost as much as they feared the Zarathi. A species that could think like predators might someday decide that the coalition itself was prey. But now you need us. We need you, the Voidwalker corrected. Not all humans. Most of your species is too civilized for what we are asking. They have adapted to peaceful lives among the coalition. But there are some, children of Deathworlds like yourself, who retain the original human instincts. The display showed a new star map, this one marking locations throughout coalition space with small green dots. Marcus counted them quickly. There appeared to be several hundred markers. These are confirmed humans with Deathworld adaptation syndrome, the Thrak commander explained. Individuals who have been monitored and assessed over years or decades. All of them have demonstrated the psychological and physical traits necessary for this mission. What mission exactly? The progenitor stood and walked to the edge of the room where the wall displayed the view of space. In the distance, Marcus could see the running lights of coalition patrol ships maintaining their endless watch. The Zarathi are massing their forces in 3 primary staging areas, preparing for simultaneous strikes against our core worlds. Our conventional forces will attempt to meet them in open battle, but we know we cannot win through direct confrontation. So we are implementing an alternative strategy, the Korthaki said, his scarred face showing what might have been a smile. While the main fleets engage the Zarathi forces, small teams of human operatives will infiltrate their staging areas. Marcus felt his enhanced reflexes analyzing the tactical situation automatically. Sabotage missions. Assassination missions, the Voidwalker corrected. The Zarathi military structure is highly centralized. Each fleet is commanded by a single war prime, whose authority is absolute. If the war primes are eliminated, their subordinates will turn on each other in a struggle for dominance. You want me to kill their commanders. We want you to save the galaxy, the progenitor said simply. The mission will require infiltrating heavily defended enemy positions, surviving in hostile environments, and engaging Zarathi forces in close combat. It is precisely the type of situation that would be impossible for any other species but which humans might find manageable. Marcus studied the faces around the table. These were some of the most powerful beings in the coalition, representatives of species that had shaped galactic civilization for millennia. And they were asking him, a maintenance technician who had learned of his true nature only hours ago, to undertake a mission that would determine the fate of billions of lives. What if I refuse? Then you are free to return to your previous life, the progenitor said. We will not force you to fight, but understand that if this mission fails, there may not be a life to return to. And the other humans you've identified, are they being given the same choice? Some have already volunteered. Others are still being approached. A few have declined. The Thrak commander paused. But you, Marcus Chen, are special even among the Deathworld survivors. How so? The display changed once more, showing what appeared to be psychological evaluation data. Marcus saw charts tracking reaction times, stress responses, and combat simulations he didn't remember taking. Your adaptation scores are off the scale, the Xantheran explained. Most Deathworld humans score between 75-90 on our threat assessment index. You score 97, what does that mean? The Korthaki leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. It means that in a combat situation you think like a Zarathi. You understand the logic of absolute violence, but unlike them, you also understand the value of what you would be protecting. Marcus absorbed this information in silence. Part of him, a part that had been sleeping until today, was already analyzing the mission parameters, calculating risks, and planning approaches to infiltration and assassination. It was a part of himself he had never acknowledged, but which felt as natural as breathing. If I agree to this, what happens next? You will be transported to a secure training facility where you will meet the other volunteers, the progenitor replied. You will be given access to the most advanced weapons and equipment the Coalition has developed. You will be trained in Zarathi biology, culture, and military structure, and then you will be deployed behind enemy lines with one simple objective: kill the war primes before they can launch their final assault. Marcus looked around the table one more time. These beings represented everything the Zarathi sought to destroy: diverse species working together, cultures built on cooperation rather than domination, the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years of peaceful development. How much time do I have to decide? Your transport leaves in 6 hours, the Void Walker said. If you choose not to board it, someone else will take your place. But our analysis indicates that without your participation, the mission's probability of success drops significantly. Marcus stood up slowly, his mind made up even as he spoke. I don't need 6 hours. The progenitor tilted his ancient head. You accept? I accept. But I have conditions. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Marcus could feel their surprise and their wariness. Name them, the progenitor said carefully. Marcus met the gaze of each being around the table before speaking. His voice was steady, but there was something in his tone that hadn't been there before, an authority that seemed to emerge from the same place as his newfound awareness. First condition: no more lies. If I'm risking my life for this mission, I want complete transparency about Coalition plans, human capabilities, and the real scope of the Zarathi threat. The progenitor considered this. Agreed, what else? Second, the other humans on this mission volunteer with full knowledge of what they are. No more pretending they're just maintenance workers or cargo handlers or whatever cover stories you've been using. They deserve to understand their own nature. The Thrak commander's antennae twitched. That level of disclosure carries risks. Some humans may not handle the revelation well. Then they're not the right humans for this mission, Marcus replied flatly. I won't work with people who don't know who they really are. The Voidwalker's form shimmered thoughtfully. This is acceptable. Continue. Third, after this mission is complete, assuming any of us survive, humans get full citizenship rights in the Coalition. No more monitoring, no more special protocols, no more treating us like weapons in storage. The room fell silent. Marcus could sense the weight of this demand. He was asking them to fundamentally change how humanity was viewed and treated by galactic civilization. That decision would require approval from the full Coalition Council, the progenitor said slowly. Then get their approval. I'm offering to save their civilization. The least they can do is acknowledge mine as equal. The Korthaki made a sound that might have been laughter. You negotiate like a warrior human. I approve of this. There is precedent, the Xantharian added, its crystalline form pulsing with rapid calculations. Species that provide exceptional service to the Coalition have been granted enhanced status before, but never a species with humanities. Unique characteristics, the Thrak commander pointed out. Marcus crossed his arms. Those unique characteristics are exactly why you need us now. You can't have it both ways. We're either dangerous enough to be useful against the Zarathi, or we're safe enough to be full members of the Coalition. Choose. The progenitor was quiet for a long moment, his ancient mind processing implications that stretched far beyond the current crisis. Finally he nodded. If the mission succeeds, I will personally advocate for full human citizenship rights before the Council. You have my word. Good. Fourth condition. I want to select my own team. From the available volunteers, the Voidwalker clarified. Obviously, but I choose who I work with and I lead the mission. No committee decisions, no remote oversight. Once we're deployed, my team operates with complete autonomy. The military representatives around the table exchanged glances. Marcus could see their discomfort with giving a human, especially one they had been monitoring rather than trusting, such absolute authority. The mission parameters are extremely complex. The Thrak commander began. Coordination with coalition forces will be essential. Will be handled by me, Marcus interrupted. You're asking me to think like a predator to hunt predators. You can't do that while second-guessing every decision through a bureaucratic chain of command. The Korthaki leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with obvious interest. He is correct. In warfare against the Zerathi, hesitation is death. If we trust him enough to send him behind enemy lines, we must trust him enough to let him operate freely. Fifth and final condition, Marcus continued. If any member of my team wants to quit at any point during training, they walk away clean. No consequences, no pressure, no guilt. This mission is voluntary or it doesn't happen. Agreed, the progenitor said without hesitation. Are those all your conditions? Marcus nodded. Those are my terms. Then we have an agreement. The progenitor stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of contract completion. Welcome to Project Retribution, Marcus Chen. As they shook hands, Marcus felt the weight of what he had just committed to. But alongside that weight was something else, a sense of purpose that filled a void he hadn't even known existed inside him. When do I meet the other volunteers? Your transport departs in 5 hours for the Obsidian facility, the Voidwalker explained. It's a research station on the edge of Coalition space, heavily shielded and completely secure. 43 humans have already assembled there. 43 out of how many total candidates? 87 were initially identified, the Zentharian replied. Some declined participation, others failed psychological screening, and a few were deemed too valuable in their current positions to reassign. Marcus processed this information. 43 humans against the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. The odds were not encouraging, but something inside him, that sleeping predator that was now fully awake, found the challenge exhilarating rather than terrifying. What can you tell me about the volunteers? The Thrak commander activated a section of the holographic display. They represent a cross-section of human society, but all share your Deathworld adaptation syndrome. Former military personnel, emergency response specialists, exploration scouts, even a few who were classified as maintenance technicians like yourself. Marcus smiled grimly at that. How many others don't know what they really are? Approximately 60% learned the truth only when they were contacted for this mission. And their reactions? Varied, the Korthaki answered. Some experienced what human psychologists call an identity crisis. Others seemed to simply accept it as an explanation for feelings and abilities they had always possessed but never understood. There have been no refusals due to the revelation, the Voidwalker added, though several individuals required extended counseling to process the information. Marcus stood up, feeling energized despite the magnitude of what lay ahead. I need to pack my personal belongings and arrange for someone to take over my duties on the station. That has already been handled, the progenitor assured him. Your replacement reported for duty this morning, and your personal effects are being transferred to your new quarters at the Obsidian facility. Of course they had planned for his acceptance. Marcus realized that these beings had been analyzing human psychology for decades. They probably understood his thought processes better than he did himself. There is one more thing, the Thrak commander said as Marcus moved toward the door. The training at Obsidian will be unlike anything you have experienced. We are going to push you and your fellow volunteers to the absolute limits of human capability. Some of you may not survive the training, the Korthaki added bluntly. The techniques and technologies we will employ are designed to enhance human Deathworld adaptations, but the process is intense. Marcus turned back to face them. What kind of enhancements? Accelerated healing, improved reflexes, enhanced sensory perception, increased strength and endurance, the Zentharian listed. The goal is to make you even more effective than nature intended. And the risks? Psychological breakdown, physical injury, or in extreme cases, death, the Void Walker said matter-of-factly. We are asking you to become something more than human. That transformation cannot be achieved without risk. Marcus considered this information. They were asking him to not just risk his life in combat, but to risk his humanity itself in the process of preparing for that combat. Has this enhancement process been tested before? On volunteers from other species, yes. On humans, the progenitor paused. You will be the first. Marcus felt that predatory part of his mind analyze this revelation. They were asking him to be a test subject for experimental procedures, then use whatever abilities he gained to infiltrate and assassinate enemy commanders, all while protecting galactic civilization from annihilation. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. I'll see you at Obsidian, he said, and walked out of the room without looking back. The transport ship that carried Marcus to Obsidian facility was unlike anything he had traveled on before. Instead of the civilian passenger compartments he was used to, this vessel was clearly military grade. The corridors were wide enough for rapid movement. The walls were reinforced against potential combat damage, and every system had multiple backups. Marcus was the only passenger on this particular flight, which gave him time to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. As he stared out at the stars streaming past, he found himself accessing memories he had never paid attention to before. His childhood on Earth Colony 7, the way his parents had taught him to always be aware of his surroundings. The drills they practiced for emergencies that seemed remarkably similar to combat situations. The way other adults on the colony looked at him, not with the casual affection most children received, but with a kind of respectful wariness. He remembered the day his parents died more clearly now. They hadn't just been researchers returning from a routine mission. They had been part of a security assessment team, evaluating potential threats along the trade routes. The raiders who killed them had been targeting Coalition intelligence assets. His parents had been spies. And they had trained their son to be one too, without ever telling him what they were doing. The transport dropped out of hyperspace near a system that didn't appear on any civilian star charts. Obsidian facility hung in the void like a dark crystal, its black surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. It was massive, easily the size of a small city, but somehow managed to feel invisible against the backdrop of space. As their shuttle approached the docking bay, Marcus could see other ships arriving. Some carried single passengers like himself, while others appeared to be transporting equipment and supplies. The scale of the operation was impressive, and he began to understand just how long the Coalition had been planning for this moment. The docking bay was busy with activity when Marcus disembarked. Technicians and support staff moved between the ships with practiced efficiency, but what caught his attention were the humans. He spotted them immediately. Even though they were scattered throughout the bay handling various tasks, there was something about the way they moved, the way they held themselves, the way their eyes constantly scanned their environment. Marcus realized he was seeing others like himself for the first time, humans who had lived their entire lives not quite fitting in with the peaceful species around them. A woman approached him as he collected his gear. She was tall and lean, with the kind of muscle definition that came from years of physical training. Her dark hair was cut short and her green eyes held an intensity that Marcus recognized in his own reflection. "Marcus Chen?" she asked, extending her hand. "I'm Sarah Rodriguez. I've been here for 3 days already, helping the new arrivals get oriented." "You're military?" Marcus guessed as they shook hands. "Former. Coalition Navy, Special Operations. Though I just learned that my Special Operations career was really an extended audition for this project." She gestured for him to follow her toward a bank of elevators. "What about you?" "Maintenance technician. Or so I thought until this morning." Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, they've been creative with their cover stories. We've got cargo handlers who can calculate ballistic trajectories in their heads, administrative assistants who speak 17 languages, including several that are classified, and a food service coordinator who apparently knows 43 different ways to kill someone with kitchen utensils." The elevator carried them deep into the facility's core. Marcus could feel the artificial gravity generators working overtime to compensate for the rotation. and his enhanced senses picked up the subtle vibrations that indicated massive machinery operating throughout the structure. "How many people have quit so far?" "None," Sarah replied, and Marcus could hear the surprise in her own voice. "We all expected at least a few people to walk away once they understood what we were being asked to do. But it seems like everyone who made it this far really wants to be here." The elevator opened onto a corridor lined with what appeared to be residential quarters. The walls were a warm gray color, and the lighting was designed to mimic natural daylight. It could have been a normal housing complex, except for the complete absence of windows and the subtle reinforcement patterns Marcus could see in the wall construction. "Your quarters are down here," Sarah explained as they walked. "Meals are communal. Training starts at 600 tomorrow, and there's a briefing tonight at 2000 hours where you'll meet everyone else." "What kind of training?" "Everything. Combat techniques, Zarathi biology, infiltration methods, weapon systems, survival skills, psychological conditioning." Sarah paused at a door marked with Marcus's name. "And then there are the enhancements. Have you started those yet?" Phase 1 began yesterday. Enhanced reflexes and improved pain tolerance. The doctors say it's like evolution in a bottle. They're activating genetic potential that's been dormant in our DNA since humans first left Earth. Marcus accessed his quarters using the biometric scanner beside the door. The room was comfortable but Spartan. A bed, a desk, a small seating area, and what appeared to be a meditation space. His personal belongings were already arranged exactly as they had been in his previous quarters. "The attention to detail is impressive," he commented. "They've been studying us for a long time," Sarah agreed. "Sometimes I wonder if they know us better than we know ourselves." That evening's briefing was held in a large amphitheater at the heart of the facility. As Marcus entered, he saw 42 other humans scattered throughout the seats. The diversity was striking. Men and women of various ages representing different ethnic backgrounds and colonial worlds. But they all shared that same watchful intensity he had noticed in Sarah. The briefing was conducted by Dr. Elena Vasquez, a human woman who appeared to be in her 60s but moved with the energy of someone half her age. Marcus learned that she had been part of the original research team on Earth Colony 7 and had been instrumental in developing the psychological profiles that identified humans suitable for this mission. "You are here because you represent the best of human adaptability," she began without preamble. "Each of you has demonstrated the rare combination of intelligence, physical capability, and psychological resilience that this mission requires." The lights dimmed and a holographic display activated, showing detailed intelligence about Zarathi military operations. "Our latest reconnaissance indicates that the Zarathi will begin their final assault in approximately 4 months. Their fleets are gathering in 3 primary locations, each commanded by a war prime whose authority extends across multiple systems." The display zoomed in on the 3 staging areas. Marcus could see the massive concentration of ships, defensive installations, and support facilities. The scale was staggering. Each location contained more military assets than some entire species possessed. "Your mission will be to infiltrate these locations and eliminate the war primes before they can coordinate their assault. This will require deep penetration into enemy territory, survival in hostile environments, and engagement with forces that have never been defeated in direct combat." A hand went up in the audience. "What kind of support will we have?" "None," Dr. Vasquez replied bluntly. "Once you are deployed, you will be operating completely independently. Any coalition assets in those systems will be focused on conventional military operations and will not be able to assist you without compromising their own missions." Another volunteer asked, "How do we extract after completing the objectives?" "That will depend on the specific tactical situation. Some of you may be able to extract via predetermined routes, others—" She paused. "Others should consider this a one-way mission." The room fell silent. Marcus felt the weight of what they were being asked to do settle on the group. They weren't just soldiers being sent to war. They were assassins being sent to die for the chance to save civilization. But as he looked around the room, he didn't see fear in the faces of his fellow volunteers. Instead, he saw the same predatory anticipation he felt in himself. These weren't people who had been forced into this role. These were people who had finally found their purpose. Dr. Vasquez continued the briefing, providing technical details about Zarathi technology, biological weaknesses, and command structures. But Marcus found his attention shifting to his fellow volunteers, analyzing their capabilities and potential for team integration. Tomorrow, his real training would begin. Tomorrow, he would start the process of becoming something more than human. Tomorrow, he would take the first step toward saving or dooming everything he had ever known. But tonight, for the last time in his life, Marcus Chen was still just a maintenance technician who had learned the truth about himself. Tomorrow, he would begin becoming something else entirely, something the galaxy had never seen before, but desperately needed. As the briefing concluded and the volunteers began to disperse, Marcus remained in his seat, staring at the tactical displays still showing Zarathi fleet positions. Somewhere out there in the cold darkness between stars, an enemy was preparing to destroy everything he cared about. They had made one critical mistake, though. They had given humanity a reason to show,